Okay, on the third episode with Conversations with Real People with Juliana, we can continue to talk about cartels and illegal immigrants coming into the United States with records of violence, and why aren't we doing more about it? Also, we talk some about education, the Department of Education, which Donald Trump is talking about eliminating. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What likely results? And then we wrap things up at the end with Juliana talking a little bit more about her plans for the future. And I think with a bunch of young people like her around, we can't go wrong.
Yeah, like and it's horrible to say because as a human, you should not be killing other human beings, but when it gets that bad, like what do you do
Mm-hmm.
in that situation? Yeah.
Well, then that brings an obvious question to my mind is various, I'll say cartel members, but at least gang members of some sort who are illegal immigrants, who are committing murders and violent crimes right here in the United States. To what extent are you aware of them? What can you tell anybody that they don't already know? Or is it that is some people say it's not that big of a problem, some say it's a huge problem. What do you say?
I think that it puts immediately what comes to mind is because I don't really know that much about it. When it comes to like people getting killed, I try to not really look into it too much just because then it does get very personal and maybe that's something I shouldn't do. But I think that to protect my sanity as a 16-year-old, I think that's just a step I make. But what comes to mind is that it generalizes a large amount of illegal immigrants, especially.
Every illegal immigrant be depicted as a mass murderer of some sort. Yeah, no, yeah.
But you also do have to acknowledge that there are those types of immigrants, and it's disappointing that it ruins the American dream for the people that do come here and try to make something out of it by these people that basically just make a joke out of it.
Yeah. So do you think apparently, so near as I can figure, as they were released, they go through, I'm not even sure what you call a procedure. Even though they're illegal, they still come in and they go through a process, even though they're illegal. And apparently they were known as murderers, those who were known as murderers and criminals, and then released into the United States. I think I'm right about that. Do you have any thoughts?
I truly do think, and I did mention this, there needs to be more infrastructure on both ends, like E-Verify, I-9, like regular checking of paperwork. And I think with those types of things in place, more of those types of people can be caught.
Yeah, but my point is they were in custody and were released, known as, if I understand correctly, known as criminals from other countries. This was known to our authorities, and they released them in the country anyway. That's what I understand.
That honestly shocks me. I mean, it shocks me, but I don't even know how to feel about that, to be quite honest. I think that I can't in good conscience say that, yeah, my government will do that, but at the same time, I have no idea. Yeah. No one knows what happens behind closed doors. And for something like that to happen, I can say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, but it did.
Yeah.
And it is happening. And that, yeah, that's a shame, honestly.
Yeah. No, no, I don't trust government.
Yeah.
There's too many people in government for their own ends. Maybe not as violent as the cartels, but the same idea. They're in it for what's in it for them. Mm-hmm. And we're supposed to just put up with it. So no, I don't. And I don't mean everybody in government is like that. But I think the higher up you go, the more corrupt you are, it helps instead of hinders to get to the top. And that's a problem. So after all, our government is supposed to be under our control, not the other way around. And I'm not sure why they're doing it. Yeah.
I was actually going to say, because I'm starting a political science class, or yeah, political science class in January, political science 201. So it's technically a sophomore in college's class, but I'm doing it through the Miami University up in Ohio. But it's online, and we're going to read John Locke's Two Treatises on Government. And I took AP World last year. I'm in AP US History, so obviously we've talked about it. The idea of popular sovereignty, and the social contract and things like that. But the Electoral College comes to mind, especially with the recent election. And I wasn't like, I just thought, okay, Electoral College, yeah, whatever, it's fine. And I wasn't really aware how many people were against it until kind of recently, and it became like a large part of what was going on at that moment. So for me, the Electoral College, I think it's fine. I don't have anything against it.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. I will say, I have two things to say. There are only two states in the United States that does it this way, but Maine and Nebraska, I believe it's Nebraska, I know it's Maine, they split their electoral college based off of the percentage of people that vote red and blue in their state. And that it's like, okay, I believe Maine only has 4 votes, if even that, maybe even 3. Like, that's really, really small, but they basically allot it based on the percentage. And I think that maybe more states should be like that. So that.
Let me disagree with that a bit, because the Constitution was created by the states. We, the people, didn't create the Constitution. The states did. They knew they needed to be governed, but they didn't want an all-powerful government. So I compare it to the European Union. You know, France is still France and Italy is still Italy, but they, among the rest of them, have formed the European Union, but they're still individual countries, of course. And we're supposed to be the same thing. Ohio's Ohio and Minnesota's Minnesota. We're not supposed to be one big thing. Any state can do what they want with their electoral college votes, but when you split them, I think you make the state less significant. If you commit to voting all the same way in the electoral college, that makes you more significant, as I said. And I think people should understand, they should realize how important their state is relative to all of this. It's not to say, well, it's we the people and then straight to the president. Say, no, it's we the people of this state, and then the state elects the presidents. And when you really think it through, and I spent a lot of time thinking it through, it's the best you can hope for. If you think we're going to just have 330 million people elect a president and that's going to work, it'll just be more fiasco than it's already been.
Yeah, I will say, I'm part of Muhammad Ali's Council of Students. So we did talk about there is no right to vote in the Constitution. It would be left up to the states, but that some people feel as if they shouldn't even vote because their vote holds no weight. Say they're a red and a blue state, it ultimately goes nowhere. What's the point? And so that, I mean, a little bit of it is gerrymandering, if you even want to go that far, but that at the end of the day, maybe it's split 55-45. Well, that other 45%, in a way, you are ignoring them. And how do you get around that?
They call it the tyranny of democracy.
Yeah.
Tyranny of the majority. That's what democracy is. If you're the 51%, good for you. If you're in the 49, tough luck. So democracy isn't all that great. That's why we have not a democracy, representative government, where our representatives are supposed to be reasonable with everybody and not give anybody any special favoritism. And honestly, as much as I dislike government, I think they've done fairly well with that lately compared to what it's been in the past. So there's that. And I never want to miss a chance to point out that the Democratic and Republican parties aren't part of the government.
Yeah.
They just control every government. Now, they are deadly like the cartels, but in a sense, they're like, that they run the government. It's not their government to run,
Yeah. And that's an interesting take on it because I think that a lot of people just identify with one side just because they don't like the other one. And I think that's such a shame. There's been talk at Max Muhammad Ali that there should be a 4-party system, and that blows my mind. Like 4 parties, like where are we getting these parties from even?
You should have 4 and 5 and 6
Yeah.
parties, yeah.
I know
Viable
Mexico
parties,
does.
I mean, you know,
yeah.
yeah.
But to me, that complicates it a little bit more.
But everybody gets represented.
Yeah.
If you're part of the 23% and you have a party that has 23% power, that counts for something.
Yeah, but I do think how would that, like, I don't even know how that would be implemented, but for right now, it just doesn't seem virtually possible.
In this country, good luck.
Yeah.
I always compare it to sports. It's always 2 teams. I'm sure you can find a sport where there's 3 or 4 teams at once, but really it's 2 teams. These guys and those guys. Something in our heads likes it that way, you know. So,
Yeah.
and then you pick a side because why would you watch teams play each other if you don't care? So you have to pick a side. Of course, no sense watching the game, and then that's fine for watching football or basketball. But what about our lives? You know.
Yeah, and that is very interesting because I just think that it would be more difficult to make a 4-party system or 3 or however many parties, but at the same time, is it almost worse that we only have 2? If that makes any sense. Like, okay, so we have 4 groups of people, it kind of spreads things out, but then when you just have 2, it's just head to head.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so it is something to consider, but I don't know if there are necessarily enough people who are on board with the idea of a whole nother party being formed.
Yeah. Well, of course, that gets us, I think, to Donald Trump, because if there's going to be a third party or a whole new wing of something or other, it's going to start with Donald Trump just right now, I think, because
Yes.
And I don't know how it will shapeshift, but clearly a whole new set of alignments is taking place, and I don't think there's any predicting it. It may still end up being the same 2 parties, but they reconfirm or reform themselves in different ways, and just end up still with 2 parties, or maybe there's a third party.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has already been happening, though, especially since 2016. The definition, or not even the definition, but the forefront of the Republican Party has largely been Donald Trump for at least the past year, if not, the past 8 years. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that there has been a little bit of a shift already. Some people are switching in and out, and their identity has changed a little bit, and maybe the values haven't changed. Nothing's changed. It's just the people have. And that's what I think.
The values come from the people. The people change, the values have. I'll make this observation. I think if there's anything that, and that, you know, I've been voting for 50 years, give or take. So I've seen a few presidents come and go. What is really, really different about Trump is I think he's serious about being anti-big government. We've had Democrats and Republicans come and go, and they give their speeches and to some extent, you know, do something. But you can see right now, Donald Trump is putting into position a cabinet and various people whose major intent is to reduce the size and power scope of the federal government, which I have not seen in my entire adult life. And it didn't all begin the day I was born. It's been going on longer than that. So either he will pull this off and we'll have a much smaller government, which I'm for, or not, or what, I don't know. But we're going to see some serious differences than anything I've seen before.
Yes. So. I agree wholeheartedly that the idea of the government kind of being in the background, not the forefront of the country, is definitely seeming to be a large part of his message. And I don't know if I agree with it yet. I have to think about it a little bit more. I know his choice or who he announced he wants to be. I believe she might still have to be voted in. I'm unsure of this money.
Approved.
Yeah, by the Senate.
Yeah.
But the Secretary of Public Education.
Yeah, I don't know much about her, but yeah.
Yeah. They and obviously this has kind of already been a thing, but the Republican Party basically wants to shut it down. And I don't know if I can agree with that. I don't, in my heart of all hearts, as a student, honestly, I don't.
Well, let me add some color to that anyway. I was a teacher for 6 years back in the 1970s, public school teacher. Jimmy Carter created the Department of Education to, in simple terms, is what he did. And I remember thinking at the time, they're going to destroy education. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what they did. I went to school without a Department of Education. I taught without a Department of Education. And it's been downhill ever since. Good intentions don't guarantee good results. We were talking earlier about, are the people that do the things they do, are they evil or are they just screwing up? Well, I don't think too many people in government are evil, but I won't say that doesn't happen. But they are screwing up big time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a former teacher, in its essence, education is a teacher in a classroom, in simple terms. You add in a bunch of bureaucrats, and all you've got is a bunch of bureaucrats mucking up the works. I don't think it adds very much at all.
Yeah.
A bureaucracy doesn't make a teacher a better teacher. So
I agree. But my worry was initially like, and I didn't even realize what would a world without a Department of Education look like?
I've seen it.
Yeah, that didn't even occur to me. I didn't even know what that would look like. Um, how does their salary work? Like that was my main concern. Like where's that? Is it just up to the states?
The money comes from us anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it still comes from the local citizens paying their taxes, and what comes from the federal government came from us in the first place. It just went to Washington and came back again, missing a lot of the money we sent them in the first place. So I don't think that's the issue you think it is, and I do know that the increased cost of education, which has skyrocketed, has mostly gone to the bureaucracy. The teachers, I mean, there's inflation, but adjusted for inflation, the teachers aren't making much more than they ever did.
Oh, no.
But you got all this bureaucracy, and that's where the money goes.
Yeah, because that was really my main worry. Like, where would the funding, how would that be controlled? The public schools that, honestly, a majority, like a huge majority of our country relies on. I mean, you don't meet many people, in my opinion at least, that go to a private school. Mm-hmm. There's only like a handful in Northern Kentucky and Ohio, and it's really, if you can afford it, and some people that can, and there are some people that can barely, and then there's college. So that was really my worry, the public school system.
I hear you making it all about the funding. I would just suggest that it's not the problem you think it is. It wasn't before. I would say the money doesn't appear out of nowhere. That's not entirely true. Yeah. The federal government just prints money, but which in the end comes out of our pocket because it devalues the money we do have. So I think you can do it like a snap of the fingers, but if we eliminated the Department of Education, I don't think it would hurt education a bit. The money would still be there, but you can't just pull a plug suddenly, but you start converting things around and you can do it.
Well, I will say, I don't know if you're aware, while we're on education at least, the Second Amendment of Kentucky,
right.
The idea, it was basically if tax dollars could go to private schools in Kentucky.
The one they just voted on. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So I go to a private school. Mm-hmm. I didn't believe on two, meaning that tax dollars should go to a private school. I think that if a private school truly needs more money, that they can always raise tuition because it's
Parents have to come up with the money.
Yeah.
A lot of them struggle to do that.
And I will say though, at least at my school, these and maybe I don't know, but these girls are well off.
Mhm.
There's girls at my school who just got their license and are driving Teslas. So I don't really, it's hard for me to imagine that some of them are really struggling to scrape
Some
some
of
pennies.
some of those private, at least this is Ohio. So Kentucky, I know Ohio. A lot of the schools in Ohio are charter schools, and they operate on a shoestring. Any private school could be on a shoestring. You don't know. And so I see that perspective of um, I'm paying taxes. We're all paying taxes. It goes to education. Well, if this person's got putting their kids in a private school, whether it be a very well off school or not, why shouldn't taxes go to their child, same as somebody else's taxes go to a public school child? As far as being equitable, they're both children in school. They should both get money from taxpayers, or all or nothing,
Yeah, that is something, that's how my dad felt about it. But I strongly believe that we have a duty to help other people. And I can't say that I wake up every morning and I look at my bank or my pay stub and I'm like, oh my gosh, yay, I paid like $70 worth of taxes or however much I pay. Like, paying taxes is not fun. I'm not going to say that it is, but at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge that it's going to people who deserve it. And it's sometimes
Sometimes going to people who don't.
Yeah,
So
sometimes, yeah, but that it's going to teachers' paychecks who work for very little wages and work with huge classrooms.
But I'm going to interrupt you. Some of those teachers are teaching at a private school, so they should be getting money, getting a paycheck.
But the other thing is for me, and that a large part of why I believed no one to is that we have, and I mentioned this earlier, the Governor Scholar programs in Kentucky. It is funded by tax dollars. And it's a huge opportunity for high school students. So there's 3 programs. There's GSE, GSA, and GSP. E is entrepreneurs, A is arts, and P is program. Arts and entrepreneurs, they can do it as soon as they're a freshman up until their junior year, rising to senior year. It's completely free. I'm like 80% sure entrepreneur and arts are, I believe, 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks that you live on a college campus and you study whatever art or in whatever sect of entrepreneurship. And completion of the program, when you go to apply to a college in Kentucky, offers you a scholarship. So the idea is to keep valuable students in Kentucky.
How do you get into those programs?
You fill out an application. I know with the program, it's the largest one. So entrepreneurship and arts offer decent scholarships, probably about half, but the program offers a full ride to virtually any college in Kentucky.
Okay, now it's needs-based. You have to be under a certain income or something?
No, it's merit. So
I like merit. I'm a big fan of merit.
Yeah, so it is a huge deal. The way it works for GSP is that you apply into it's a huge application. I've been working on it for 2 months. It entails of every bit of service you've done as a high schooler, the awards you've gotten, the classes you take, your GPA, your ACT, your PSAT, your SAT, the extracurriculars you're involved in, a community letter of recommendation. Like it's probably more extensive than some college applications even. And you basically you take your application, you submit it to your school. Mine is actually due Monday. So I'm scrambling to make final edits, and then they can only send a certain amount of students from the school onto the next round. and only a certain amount of students from each school and each region are accepted into the state round, where it's then plucked down even more. So that's how the application
So right now, this
works.
application you're doing is just for your school?
Just for my school.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's extremely competitive. It somewhat depends on where you're starting off. I'm starting off at a private school, so these girls are geniuses, to say the least. So it's extremely competitive from where I'm starting. Some regions are a little bit less competitive, but at the end of the day, not everyone makes it.
Sure.
And it's only about, I believe, 200 kids who make it for each session, even. And that's only 3 sessions, only 600 kids, and everyone and their mother applies. So, and it's free, and it offers a full ride, especially for GSP. And tax dollars fund it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I just think it's gotten overblown. That's all I can say. From my background, from what I know, not to say back in the old days it was definitely better, but it's again, I like the individual effort, and certainly you're making it. But something about you're making an individual effort to be part of this thing that I'm not sure why it's there. I mean, I do and I don't. I just don't like being, and this is me, definitely just me. I don't like having to jump through hoops, which is what you're doing, and that's not wrong. But if I want to pursue something, I'll pursue it, if I don't, I don't. If I want to try to make a living, I need to find something that I can do that people will pay me to do. It certainly doesn't mean I don't need an education for that. But I like it more direct, than going through all this stuff. And I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong, but that's the issue I have with going,
I will say,
and one more thing, I want to complete that. No, it just dawned on me, but I just wanted to complete that thought. And it also stresses conformity. The people who are overseeing all of this are bureaucrats who have certain criteria, and they're trying to make everybody fit these criteria. And I go, if they're doing this, I'm doing this, and that's something I have an issue with. Okay.
Yeah. I will say the program actually does do a very good job at diversifying. So they basically, there was a story that one of my teachers told me, that there was this boy at Cooper where the teacher had previously worked, and he was part of the committee that was putting together the list of students that was making it past X round.
Mm-hmm.
And they take into account more than just grades. Grades are only like a very, very small portion. It's largely what are you a part of, and what are you doing to be a part of your community, and what are you adding to? That this kid, he wasn't all that great. He was their 13th choice. They could choose 13 kids. At my school, we can only choose 6. He was their 13th choice to send on to the state rounds, but he wanted to study film studies, or like musical arts or musical theater. And he got accepted because it was a focus area that was predominantly women, and they wanted more males and more people of different backgrounds. So I think that, yeah, it is very much like, do you meet the criteria? But it's also a lot of, who are you and what makes you you?
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I think that for me, life will go on if I don't make it in. And you were kind of maybe alluding to that the idea that, yeah, it's like, this is what I am for, this is what I'm applying to, but even if I don't make it in, my life still goes on. And that, sure, a big reason I'm applying is for the scholarship, but another big reason is because I would truly love to learn my focus area that I've decided on for 5 weeks. That is honestly a dream to me, and that's what I did last summer. I studied for 3 weeks of my summer at colleges, because that's what I love to do, and I'll find another way to do it if I don't make it in.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to accept. I will say I was hung up on the ACT for a very long time. And when I didn't get the score I wanted, it was hard for me to move on. And that was a hoop I had to jump through to get to the GSP level or to get into a certain college, but life went on and I'll find a way to get into the college or get into GSP.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that those who endeavor, they will find a way because they're working at it. Not too many people have such a brick wall in front of them, they just can't get through it if you keep working at it. And then on the other hand, there's people don't work that hard. If they have a little bit of a issue, a little something gets in their way, it's like, oh, well, never mind. So it isn't about the scholarship. I'm not knocking scholarships and go for it, but it is your mental attitude that does more than anything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much time you have. We keep going or not. We've been at this a while.
I'm fine if you have any more questions.
Well, because I did just have this thought. Here's a movie you've never heard of. I don't think. The Commitments.
No.
Okay. It's an Irish film about a guy that wants to form a soul band. Okay, rhythm and blues. Black.
Mhm.
We would call it black in Ireland. Get it? So he wants to get this band together who are going to sing soul songs. Jackie Wilson, Wilson Pickett was the guy who mostly wanted to names I know you don't know. But anyway, so he's putting this band together and he's having all his auditions. And part of what they're showing you there is the people who really wanted it. And the people just, oh, an audition? Okay, I'll go. And they make almost no effort and, they're gone. So it was about finding people who even want to go, really willing to make the sacrifices and go to it. And then they put the band together and the band has to actually practice and they all don't necessarily get along, but they have to form a band and do this. And it's an interesting thing, I think, to contemplate relative to what we're talking about. It's more allegorical, if you want to say that, than anything, but about what it takes for people to get together and long enough to actually make something good happen. And I will spoil the story for you. In the end, they split up. They just can't. They focus together and they all go their own ways. But very interesting study of personalities and what people will or won't do and can and can't do. So,
Yeah, I will say I think that a lot of it, like you were saying, is just like beyond like academics. For me, it is a large part academics because I am a student, but it's how far are you willing to go in the workplace or to get along with certain people or like for me, I run even though I probably shouldn't because I have multiple medical conditions. How far are you willing to push yourself when exercising? But yeah, I think that if you can manage to push yourself in one area, it comes easier in others.
sure. Yeah, success, and that's an interesting word. People, and I've used this analogy. Let's say that guy over there is not really there, but we'll pretend he is. That person has $1 million. Well, he's rich. Let's make 10 million, make him, not for sure rich. Well, how did he get that $10 million? Is he successful? Well, if he just won the lottery, no, he's not successful, but he's got $10 million for it. Did he inherit it? Well, he's still not successful. He was just born to the right parents. Is he a successful pro athlete and earned it that way? Well, then he earned it, but yet he's just playing a sport, but he earned it. I mean, they're paying him for how good he is. Or is he a successful businessman and earned it by grinding it out every day for who knows how long, his entire life? So it's $10 million any way you look at it, but two of those people are successful and two of them aren't. And I think we conflate the idea of success with just how much money did you get, not how did you get it.
Yeah.
So I do think people say, oh, that guy's rich. He's got no right to it. Well, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But I get a little upset being a retired businessman, how many people just think being in business is easy. And I know you know better. That to be a wealthy businessman is to basically have stolen the money, which is absurd. although some businessmen have
Yeah,
stolen the money, but
somehow.
yeah.
Yeah. That's funny that you say the lottery thing though. That reminds me of my dad. I remember when I was like 8 years old, he he's always been very good at math, but he literally he did like the statistical probability on what numbers would win. And he like figured out he wouldn't figure it out, but he had gotten to a point where he had gotten pretty accurate at knowing which numbers would win, but he never did it because he would just didn't feel like it. Like that just wasn't
The
success
odds are
to him.
low. First of all,
Yeah.
in the long haul, you can't win because they only pay out, I think, half of what people put in. So if you put in 100, statistically speaking, you'll get $50 back, and that's the odds. There's no getting around it. A person can get lucky, really lucky, and make 10 million, but not usually.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, they can't pay out 10 million to everybody. That just
Yeah,
doesn't work.
that's true.
If it, and another thing about this is, as a business can create value. So they can take $1,000 and create $2,000 worth of value. And as a matter of fact, they better, or they're going to go out of business. Uh, People don't get that. I think a dollar is always a dollar. But in the lottery, it is true. Whatever amount of money went in, that's all the money there is. You can't pay out more than went in, and they don't even pay out that. So you can't, in the long haul, you can't win the lottery. A person can, but the people cannot. That makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take though. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
if you want to extrapolate that out to real life, yeah, we can all end up the same. It's not possible.
Yeah, I was thinking that if you just expand it into life and how people are, there is no, we all win. And even the people that do win, are they really winning? Like, how much are they really happy?
Well, that's a whole other
Yeah.
story. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. There's people with no real amount of money who are as happy as anybody can hope to be. So why knock it? So,
Mm.
yeah. So.
All right. Do you have anything else or no?
Unless you do.
I don't think I do now.
Well, I really appreciate the time we've had together. This is
Thank you.
terrific.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Mom over there, adding in.
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate what Mom's done to create such a wonderful daughter too. So,
thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up, and I noticed that my wife and Toby have just walked by there, so it's a good time to wrap it up. So, thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Good luck in your future.
Thank you. I'll need it, especially after Monday with my application being sent in.
Take that away from me, so you don't need the luck. You'll do it. You'll do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye. Thanks for watching these 3 episodes of Conversations with Real People with Juliana. I am the Radical Individualist. This is Individualists Unite. Can be found mostly at individualistunite.substack.com. Be sure to check out all the other Conversations with Real People, all the other videos, audio, and essays, again, at individualistunite.substack.com. Thanks for watching.